Hello, my beautiful Starbeam. I am so excited to have you here today for the multidimensional magic course. So I'm going to explain a little bit about my backstory and why I decided to put this together. So my name is Sage Gwendolyn. I'm a spiritual coach and energy healer. And why I decided to do this was I wanted to share the big things that helped me transform my life. Like all the things I have figured out on my life journey thus far in my spiritual awakening journey. So we'll start with me as a child. And so I was homeschooled until ninth grade. I was raised by my grandparents who eventually adopted me and my sister when I was 12 and she was 9. My mom was kind of in and out of my life during childhood, and we'll get further into that later. But I grew up in a very religious household. And nothing wrong with religion, love that, okay? But I grew up in one that was very intense and a bit oppressive. My grandfather was a preacher and he was a principal for a long time, and my grandmother helped raise me as well. And it was just a lot to deprogram to be able to do the things that I do now as a spiritual coach and an energy healer. And so fast forward a little bit, when I was 12 years old, my grandfather asked me, "What do you want to do with your life?" And I told him, "I want to help people." And the reason that I wanted to help people was because by the time I was 12 years old, I had already experienced a significant amount of trauma. And I didn't want people to have to go through the same thing that I did, or I wanted to be able to help them feel loved and seen and heard, and help them feel safe and that they can trust themselves and others, because those are all things that I had to work through even up until 12 years old. So I go to high school. That was a lot from somebody who did not have a whole lot of friends growing up or was around a whole lot of people. With being homeschooled, it was a shock. I did not have necessarily all the social skills that one might need to enter straight into high school. I also did not realize that I was an empath light worker or that I was neurodivergent. And so it was a bit of a struggle. Okay, always picking up on people's thoughts, feelings, and emotions. At that time, I had no idea that that was what was even happening, if you will. I thought all of those feelings and thoughts and emotions were mine. And so I was in a constant state of anxiety. So getting out of high school, I got into a narcissistic relationship that I was in for a very long time. And I was a different person back then. And I probably wasn't having the most healthy relationship dynamics either, but I definitely took some damage from that. Okay. During that time, I opened a doggy daycare. Love that. Had it for 7 years. Love the puppies. It was super fun. Okay. I was also going to school to become a clinical psychologist. I thought that was the way. If you want to help people, that's how you got to do it. And there's one way to do it, but there's many ways that you can help people. And so along the way, I kind of fell out of alignment with the business, also with becoming a clinical psychologist, because I realized I'm not an office type of person. I am not meant to be sitting behind a desk from a 9 to 5 job. And with being a therapist, love therapists, highly, highly respect therapists. They do beautiful, beautiful work. But I realized that it was going to be a bit constricting for the things that I wanted to help people with, just because of, the dynamics of patient and therapist dynamics. And so I was like, you know what? I don't know what I want to do, but this is not in alignment anymore. The clinical psychologist and the doggy daycare. So I sold my half of the business, and then I went to go work at a bar. And I was a bar manager for a little while. And I said, you know what? I think I want to be a coach. I wasn't sure what I wanted to help people coach with at that time, but I was like, you know what? I just want to help people. So I made a commitment that everybody that entered the bar that I talked to, I was going to treat like a potential client. And that was a great place to do it, because a lot of people come to bars, not all the time, but a lot of people come to bars to figure their stuff out, right? And so I was there to chat with them. So that kind of fell out of alignment. I do a lot of timeline shifting, okay? Like a new person every day. I've had like 180,000 jobs. So fell out of alignment, and I said, okay, what am I going to do next? And then I found a nonprofit for girls, and it was for underprivileged girls. And I was like, let me go try this out. I love kids. I love, 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 love working with kids. They're so like pure and innocent, and like you don't have to mask around them, and they're so fun and joyful and tapped into their imagination and creativity. Little did I know at that time that was aligning me with what I was going to do in the future, because I help other people with their inner kids, right? With their healing. And so I became a project manager there and ran a STEM program. Love that. I've also worked in the mental health field with children in a mental health hospital. And so I was able to apply some of those skills over in the nonprofit as well. And so after I was there for a while, I said, okay, it is time to fully step into this coaching thing, if that's what I want to do. Like there comes a time where you have to take a leap of faith on yourself and say, I believe in me. I believe in my capabilities and what I can do. And so eventually I got there. And this is what I do full time now. And I help people heal their inner kids with a myriad of other things, right? So during my journey, I struggled with extreme anxiety and depression for many years, probably up until I was about 27 years old. I had an eating disorder that would come and go, and I had body dysmorphia. And I was just living in a reality that was not in alignment with me. There was a lot of masking and people pleasing and perfectionism and unworthiness. I couldn't be alone with my thoughts and my feelings most of the time. And so I would attach myself to codependent relationships, and I was doing zero self-care and self-love. Now, was any of that my fault? No. And it's usually not anybody's fault. You know, we just sometimes live through life and we're not taught the things that we need to know or know how to do or how to heal or how to process our emotions. Now, is it our responsibility to heal those things within self? Yes. But is it our fault? No, especially if you have lived with generational trauma where your parents or grandparents or, you know, us as society have all these unhealed things. It's a little more difficult to traverse. Okay, so I have pulled myself up out of some really, really dark places. And that is why I put this course together. Not that you're necessarily in that space, but it can be really intense, especially when you're going through dark night of the soul or you want to shift into a new reality. There's a lot that goes into that. So I wanted to put together maybe, let's call it a map of how to shift into a new reality for yourself. Woo. Okay, a little bit more about me. I recently changed my name. Speaking of people pleasing and fear of other people's perceptions. So my previous name in my prior life was Brittany Porter. Some you might know me by my older name. And that is a name that has not resonated with me for a very long time, since I was a child. And I said, I'm going to change it one day. Okay, so that day came and I've changed it to Sage Gwendolyn. And I wanted to share this with you because you might hear me refer to myself as Brittany, like younger me, or I'm still getting used to calling myself Sage Gwendolyn. So you might hear me call myself Brittany. So if that pops up and you're like, what the heck? That is why. But I'm very excited about that. This is a name that fits with me. I love Sage, and Gwendolyn is an homage to my grandmother. So I'm also a mom to an 11-year-old son, and then I have 3 puppies as well. So one of my biggest passions in life is helping people transform theirs, because it's taken me a long time to transform mine. So I want to save you some time and energy and help be that fairy guide for you. So we are going to go ahead and get into this presentation. Also, I wanted to say, I'm going to be sending out all this accompanying slides with all clickable links on it, because I have a lot of resources in here. They're not all mine. They're from people that I have learned from and have gleaned knowledge and wisdom. And so I wanted to share them with you too. So you'll have those to click on. Okay, magic is real if you believe. So this is a conversation that I had with my spirit team, spirit guides, one day when I was, afraid of persecution, which some of us are, us light workers, empaths that are on the fringe out here and perceiving into different frequencies and dimensions. Okay. And sometimes that's a collective fear of persecution as well. Like, oh, if I do this, then my reality is going to shift, or people are going to think I'm weird, all these things. And there came a day for me when I said, I don't know if I want to go down this path. One, because, there's safety and comfortability. And I don't want other people to make fun of me. And I don't, people aren't going to understand. Not everybody will. And my guide said, well, you have two options here. You can either not believe in it, or you can believe in it and it be real. Both realities are true. Okay. One is more fun than the other. And I said, okay, I'm just going to fully go all the way in. Because if I get to the end of my life and get to this next incarnation and somebody tells me, oh, all that stuff wasn't real, you know what? It doesn't matter, because I lived a much more fun and magical and whimsical life. And I do, compared to my prior life. And when I say prior life, I mean like the first 27 years of my life. It is incredibly different, and it is so much fun. And that's because I made that choice. The magic is real. Okay. You might need to make that choice too. And that's come up several times for me, because every time that I have leveled up in my life or business, I get that same self-limiting beliefs that come up every single time. I would like to go ahead and start this course with, you will never get rid of those self-limiting beliefs. And we're going to talk more about that. But it's like these hurdles that you're like on a track, like a race track. What is it called? Not racing track, but you're like running, and then these hurdles you have to jump over, like in the Olympics. You jump over one and then you keep running. You got to jump over another one. Your self-limiting beliefs are there to serve you, and they help you level up. Like I said, we'll talk more about that later. But I do want to say that to begin with. Okay, so the steps that we have here. This is the roadmap that helped me shift my life, and that I help other people shift their lives with. Step 1, processing your emotions. You got to start there. That is your trauma. That is your shadow work. That is all of the behavioral patterns and triggers that you're experiencing right now that are keeping you from the life that you want. That's the first hurdle. Okay. And then balancing your chakras. Step 2, connecting with your inner children, because they help you amplify your imagination and creativity, and they help you tap into your magic. Then we get into how manifestation actually works. Because when I first started learning about manifesting and the law of attraction, I was always wondering, why is it not working? Because you got to do step 1 and step 2 first. Okay, and once I did that, everything shifted in my life. Everything changed. But this is the roadmap of how to get there. So we're going to get into it. Okay, energy in motion, emotions. So we are, and let me preface this before we get further into it. So my understandings and how I perceive the world is that we are energetic beings living a human experience, right? Multi-dimensional beings. There's us, like there's Sage in this incarnation, but then there's all these other different versions of me from different incarnations. Now, if that is not your understanding, use your discernment. Not everybody's truth is going to be your truth. And some of these things might resonate with you and some of them might not. And that is totally okay. There's always things that we can learn and grow from other people. A lot of this is based in spirituality, and then a lot of it is based in psychology. I think it's very important to come from both ends, because we're human beings and multidimensional beings. So you take what resonates with you from this course. But for me, I work in the Akashic records, and we'll get more into that, but I do believe in reincarnation, and that we are all reflections of one another, coming from the same source point, split into different perceptual lenses. So you are me and I am you. But again, use your discernment and what your truth is for you. Okay. So emotions, energy, emotion. We're all energy condensed into this material form. Like you're a material form. Okay, just like this pen. Okay. There's really no difference between me and this pen if you break it down to the quantum level. Okay. So as a human being, part of the experience is feeling emotions. That's how we traverse through the world. That's how we experience it. Wayne Dyer is a spiritual teacher, and one of my favorite quotes from him is, if you didn't have a physical body, how would you experience chocolate cake? Like, if you're just an energy being floating up in the ethers, it's going to be difficult for you to do that if you don't have a physical vessel to channel it through. And that is what our physical body is for, to channel these emotions, energy and motion. So something I learned along my journey is you are not your emotions. Those are things that you are channeling. You're channeling happiness, sadness, frustration, anger. They are meant to come in so you can experience them, but then you're meant to let them go and let them flow through you. What happens is when we don't process them, they harden and become dense, and they crystallize in our body, and then they become anxiety, depression, and disease. And not always, because anxiety and depression sometimes is due to chemical imbalances because we are human beings, but unprocessed emotions, my earring just fell out. Unprocessed emotions, maybe it was meant to channel through my ear, are not meant to stay in your body. And so when we are feeling real dense and sludgy and yucky, usually that's because we got something up in there that has not been looked at. So were you taught to process your emotions? Most of us weren't. If you had, and if you're watching this and you're an empath, light worker, neurodivergent, when I talk to people like that, they usually have a harder soul contract that they signed up for. And soul contract is you as the higher self before you got here, as your highest self, was like, these are all the things I'm going to do while I'm here on this earth plane, or whatever experience that you're in. Sometimes we pick the heavier experiences so that we can help other people. Like, now looking back at it, I see why I had to go through all the things that I did, so I can teach other people these things, but you can only help others with how deeply you've gone in yourself. That's us resonating with other people and being on the same wavelength. So you might be feeling called, like your purpose, to help other people, either professionally or in your friends and family dynamic. Maybe you're, helping people break through generational trauma or helping them, live better lives. Well, sometimes you gotta go through really deep situations to be able to help people through theirs. So I wanted to offer that in case it resonates with you. Okay. So if you were a child that experienced a lot of trauma, most of the time, our parents, guardians did not teach us what to do with our emotions. Sometimes we have parents or guardians that say, shut up or suck it up, or it's not that big of a deal. And all emotions are valid. All of them. Okay. Like, don't dismiss your emotions. They are there as an alert system. They are trying to indicate to you that something is off, something is out of alignment, especially the heavier, denser ones like sadness and anger and frustration and grief. It's all there to tell you something, right? So we're going to talk about what to do with them. If you look over here at the emotional frequency chart here with this cute little kitty cat, you can kind of see that this emulates the chakra system. At the bottom, we got the root chakra, and we go all the way up to the crown chakra. Okay. So these really heavy, dense, lower emotions down here at the bottom: shame, guilt, apathy, grief, fear, desire, but not like in a good way desire, more so like in like a jealousy, envy type of way, anger, pride. Those are usually housed in your bottom lower chakras. That's where most of our trauma is, because when we are developing in childhood, root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus chakra are very interconnected with us as children and are formed while we are a child. Okay. So if you've got unprocessed trauma, unprocessed emotions, most of it's going to be in the root and the sacral and the solar plexus. So when we start to clear the trauma and the emotions out from there, that have been hardened and become dense, right? It clears the path so that you can connect with your upper chakras. And your upper chakras have more of the vibration and frequency of acceptance, reason, love, joy, peace, enlightenment, prosperity, and abundance. Okay. So, highly sensitive person. If you were watching this, I would bet you are a highly sensitive person. Okay. You pick up on others' thoughts, feelings, emotions very easily. You feel and hear the things that are not said with people, like the little micro expressions that people make, and you can tell when they're upset about something but they're not saying something. That usually comes from a trauma response. Okay. So as a child, ask yourself, did I have to do that to keep myself safe? Did you have parents or guardians who had very strong energy fields? And if you didn't act a certain way or talk a certain way or, behave a certain way, maybe your parent or guardian or teachers or friends, cut eyes at you or told you, you're not good enough, or held too high of expectations, or maybe you had like a very chaotic household, it can make you hypersensitive. That inner child within you says, I need to know what everybody is thinking and feeling 24/7 so that I am safe, so that I don't get in trouble, so that I'm not judged, so that I'm not perceived. Sometimes you're born an empath. Other times you're forged into an empath. And even though it can be very negative, like when I was, first went to high school, coming from being homeschooled, I didn't realize that was what was going on. I didn't realize that I felt awful all the time because I was absorbing everyone's feelings, thoughts, and emotions. And as I got older and learned what an empath and a light worker was, even being neurodivergent, I was like, this sucks. Okay, like I hate this. This is a curse. Like, I'll just be very transparent. And it doesn't have to be. There are ways that you can learn to not take on everyone's thoughts, feelings, emotions. We're going to talk about that. And it can become your biggest blessing. Like, I love those things about myself now, but that's because I figured out how to better handle them and how to turn it on and off, which we'll talk about too. But I just want you to know, it doesn't always have to be that way. There is a reality where these things are beneficial to you, and they become extremely beneficial when it comes to manifesting. And we're going to get into that. But your emotions and your hypersensitivity make you an extremely powerful manifester. And maybe you have only experienced the negative sides of manifesting, okay, where you're pulling in not so great things, but we're going to switch your channels. It's like going from AM of negativity manifesting to FM positivity and manifesting, okay? And that's getting a handle on your emotions and not always picking up on other people's stuff. So heavy emotions, yuck. Do you feel that way sometimes? Like feeling anger and sadness and feeling loss and frustration? Yeah, that doesn't feel good all the time. Like sometimes it's very overwhelming, especially if you have had to disassociate out of your body for most of your life. Now, if that's you, I'm not a medical doctor, okay? So we need to use our discernment when listening to this, but I'll give you my example. So I never felt safe in my body to feel emotions or just be in my body, period. So most of my life, I was like observing everything from outside of my body. I didn't know how to process stuff. I didn't want to process stuff. And then I ended up getting in a lot of numbing behaviors that were very unhealthy because I was trying to block out everybody's stuff, not even knowing that it was everybody else's stuff, thought it was mine, but I was continuing all these numbing behaviors and behavioral patterns to try and keep it out and away from me. Okay. So I'm going to pause this for just one moment. You had to run to the restroom. Okay. So I know that it can be extremely intense to feel these things. Even to this day, I do so much better processing my emotions, but it's still like a huge wave that hits you in the face sometimes, okay? And it's not always fun. But when you start to learn how to process them, you actually make friends with your emotions and you realize they're there, like I said, as an alert system, and they love you so much and they're trying to get you in alignment with your ideal reality. Like, there is a pendulum swing that is necessary. How would you experience enlightenment, peace, joy, happiness, bliss, serenity, unless you had the contrast of sadness and anger and frustration and jealousy, right? And I'm not saying that we need to stay in those lower, denser emotions, right? But sometimes you need them to come in to help you align to what you do want, right? Because they're your indicators that something is off. Okay. So when we start to look at them through that lens, it's so much easier to integrate and channel them, right? So emotions are like a small child. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a minute, but they have that type of energy and frequency because most of your blocked up emotions that you haven't felt are coming from childhood. You think that they're from adulthood because you're experiencing them now. But if you, as a child, experience fear and anger and sadness and frustration, and those things were never processed, they're still sitting in there from childhood. That is the root of where they come from. And so with emotions and inner child healing, you really have to start to process your emotions in adulthood to be able to get back to those layers of childhood and then fully release that emotion that's been pent up in there. And that is how you release behavioral patterns and triggers as well. So inner child consciousness. If you have a voice in your head that is talking all this nasty, negative stuff to you, and it's causing people pleasing and perfectionism and, all this stuff that's not serving you, I want you to ask yourself, where did I hear that? Who has said that to me in my life? Because babies are not born with self-limiting beliefs. They are not born with imposter syndrome. They are not born with people pleasing. They're not born with perfectionism. They're not born with trauma. For the most part, sometimes, we have trauma in birth and things like that. And generational trauma is passed down through our DNA. That's a whole different chat. And most of the time, babies are just born a blank slate. Okay. And it's other people's fears and trauma and perceptions that are placed on us. I don't really like to call things blocks because blocks make things very concrete in your reality and it solidifies it deeper into your paradigm when you think there's this huge concrete block in your way. I like to call them filter lenses because that's what all of these things really are. All of these quote unquote blocks and unprocessed emotions and trauma are filter lenses on top of your perception of reality that other people have placed there. Maybe your parents have stuff that they didn't resolve and we're passing it on to you, or somebody else's self-limiting beliefs or lack mentality, like from a teacher or friends, were told to you. And then you were programmed with those things and how to see and interact with your reality. And that's how you've been living, is from those perceptions. So when we take those filter lenses off, now we're seeing and interacting with the world completely differently. That's, healing our behavioral patterns and our triggers and trauma. So filter lenses, because when we say it, sorry about the shirt, it's coming off of my shoulders. So when we take these filter lenses off, our whole reality changes. But when I say filter lenses instead of blocks, it opens up so much more room in your energy field and what is possible, because we really start to understand these things are not our faults. This is something that has happened to me and something that I was taught. Now, is it my responsibility to heal and learn how to let go of them? Absolutely. But it is not my fault. And I'm going to say that over your inner child, because a lot of our inner children need to hear that. These things are not your fault. I'm going to try not to tear up now. Okay. And I'm very proud. I know we're kind of getting early into the inner child, but I'm very proud of your inner children inside for getting you to sign up for this course, because that's who did. I know adult you went in and signed all the things, but your inner child said, I'm ready to heal, because this is going to be very inner child in depth. Okay. So I'm very proud of them for showing up and saying, I'm ready to do this. Okay. So I want you to ask yourself next time that you have a self-limiting belief come up, who said that to me? Where did I learn that? And I'm going to give you an example. So the first time that I launched this course, okay, it was a live course over 3 days. And I wanted to do this so it's more accessible for people, so you don't have to like show up on a certain day and time. So when I did it and we got into the chakra part, I messed up on one of the slides. Not a big deal, right? Because I was telling everybody like what was on the slide. After I got done, I started having a panic attack after we got done live. And I heard this voice in my head that I hadn't heard from a very long time. And it said, you are so dumb. You are so stupid. And I was like, whoa, where is that coming from? I said, we haven't thought that in a long time. That's something that I thought I had cleared out. And I realized it was coming from my inner child. And I said, hey, why are we thinking that? And she was like, because we made that big mistake. And I was like, it's really not that big of a deal. I said, do you really think that you're dumb and stupid? I said, who said that to you? And she said, grandma, like my grandmother. So when I was younger, my grandmother did not have good self-esteem and confidence. She would talk down to herself all the time and say things like that, like, I'm so dumb and I'm so stupid to herself. Little me picked up on that and started running that program in my mind. And I did say those things to myself constantly, right, throughout adulthood. And that wasn't my voice. I thought it was because I was hearing it in my head as my voice. And that might be you too. You have all these negative voices up here. They're not yours. Your inner child, and you think it is because you hear it in your internal voice, but it's actually coming from somewhere else. Somebody who said that to you because you weren't born with that belief. Okay. So I talked to my inner child and I was like, hey, we just picked that up. That's something grandma said that she felt about herself. And that has nothing to do with us. We are more than capable. And I started talking her through it. And she was able, I literally felt an energetic release and her finally be able to let go of that weight of thinking that she's dumb and stupid. She was like, oh yeah, that does make sense. That's not my voice. I thought it was. And so I wanted to say this to you. Next time one of those icky yucky self-limiting beliefs come up, or those voices telling you you're not good enough, or that you'll never be, successful, ask yourself, who said that to me? And do they have their own self-limiting beliefs and trauma that they projected onto me? Because guarantee you they do. Okay. All right. So new toolkit, feeling your feelings. Okay. So some of us are very scared to feel our feelings because we're worried if we do that, then we're going to go back to places and spaces that we were in the past. And so this was me when I really started working with my inner child, my emotions. I said, I don't want to feel anger and sadness and feeling lost and depression and all these heavy things, because I had experienced a lot of anxiety and depression in my life. And I knew how easy it was to slip back to those states of being. Like, I had to really sit with myself and say, Sage, or Brittany at that time, okay, you're not that person anymore. You have done so much healing work on your spiritual awakening journey. Why do you think that you're going to go back to that space? You're not that person anymore. and you have a toolkit. You like, just because you have gotten yourself out of those dark spaces doesn't mean that you're ever going back. And I'm not saying that you won't have a sad day or sad couple months, right? Especially when we're going through dark nights of the soul, but you got to trust yourself. Sometimes you got to take these immense leaps of faith and say, I got me. That's what I had to do. It was like, you know what? It is not serving me to push all this down and shove it off. And it's keeping my reality exactly the same every single day. Something's got to change. And so I said, I'm about to really hunker down on these emotions and these self-limiting beliefs, and I'm going to shift my life. Sometimes you got to make that commitment to yourself and trusting yourself that it's not going to be fun processing these, harder, denser emotions. But if you do, it will change your life. Okay. You making room for the new happy ones. You are the higher self. So this is the difference. Okay. When we start talking about inner child healing, there is a level of understanding where you think that you are your emotions. I am sad. I am angry. I am frustrated. I am shameful and guilty. When you get to this level, you start to realize that happened to me in the past, and that was my experience, but it's not my experience now. I am going to help my inner children heal from all of these things that have happened to me or to them. When I started healing my inner children, that is the pivotal moment where I timeline shifted into a new reality. Because now I have pulled away from being the emotions and trauma to feeling, still feeling, but observing them from a higher perspective and saying, yeah, all that stuff happened to me. I'm sorry about my nose. And it's real and it's valid, but that is not my present experience. And I'm choosing a different way to move forward. And we're going to talk about how to do that. Okay? But it is a huge difference when you can look at emotions as channeling them and not being them. So emotions are like a small child. They just want to be seen, heard, and validated. Your anger is literally like a little child, or your sadness, frustration saying, hey, 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 and trying to tell you something is wrong and out of alignment. And what happens when you ignore a child? Usually they get louder and they try and get your attention even more. So when we take the time to validate them and say, hey, I see you, what's going on? Now we are becoming the higher self instead of the emotion. And so this is what I do. So let's take anger, okay? So anger is an intense emotion. Okay, and usually under anger is sadness. I like to say that too, because sometimes people don't realize that that's the emotion underneath anger a lot of times. So when I get hit in the face with anger, just so intense, okay, and your central nervous system is coming on and you're going in fight or flight, I close my eyes and I say, hey, anger, I see you. Thank you so much for telling me that you're here. I love you, and I want you to know we're safe. I'm going to process this emotion with you, and we are going to feel it very intensely in our body. Our fight or flight is going to come on. Our central nervous system is going to kick on. It is not going to feel fun. But when we get done feeling the emotion, we'll go do something fun together. And you can scream as loud as you want up here. You can pretend that you're hitting a pinata. Y'all can just go ham up in there. Okay. When you are talking to your emotions like that, you are expressing to them, I am not you. I will help you process through it and we will feel it together. But when you're done, we are going to release it. Just like you would what you can envision as a small child too. Sometimes when you personify things, and we're going to talk about that more, but sometimes when you personify things, it's easier to speak to them. So you can just envision it's a child within you. Now, do you always have time to process your emotions in the moment? No, because we're adults. We got a lot of stuff to do. Okay. But you got to do it sometime because it's going to come out eventually. It's going to come out. Like if you suppress your emotions, it's going to come out as a breakdown. It's going to come out as an outburst. It's going to come out as anxiety and depression. It's going to come out as chaos in your life, or relationships going, not how you want them to, or your finances not where you want them to be. It's going to affect your life. So can you do it in that moment? Maybe not, but you got to do it eventually. Okay, so I'll give you an example. So my son's father and I are not together anymore. We were not in a healthy relationship in the past. Have a very good relationship now. We're not together, but we have a very, very good co-parenting relationship, and we're friends now. And some people you're not meant to be together, but can be good co-parents and friends. Okay. So we had a very tumultuous relationship when we were together. So fast forward to this past year, we were going to throw a birthday party for my son, and his dad said something to me that took me to a 1,000 level of anger, like just so incredibly angry. And I was very triggered. And a lot of that was coming from past trauma of things between him and I in the past. So past Sage coming up. Okay. And I went outside to go on a walk, and I closed my eyes and I said, "Hey, anger, thank you so much for coming up. I appreciate you and I love you so much. And I know that something is wrong, but we can't process this right now." I said, "We are about to go to a party, my son's birthday party." I said, "We cannot do this right a second." Okay. I said, "I'm going to need you to cool off until I can come and talk to you later." And immediately, and I said, "I promise I will come back and speak to you because I understand how upset you are, just like you would a friend or a child, right?" And I said, "When we get home this evening, I will process this with you." Immediately, anger, calm down. Old Sage, calm down. Okay. And so go to the party, come home. And this is the part that is fundamentally key, especially if you have abandonment issues and trust issues, because a lot of those unprocessed emotions from childhood are from abandonment and trust issues. And so I get home and I'm sitting on my bed and I said, "Okay, anger, let's do it." Okay. So I go in my mind and I am talking to the younger version of myself from when him and I were together. And I said, "You are so valid for that. And I totally agree. That was mad disrespectful, what was said. And my feelings were not taken into consideration. They were dismissed." And I said, "You have every right to be angry." I said, "Let's do it." And my central nervous system kicked on. I felt in fight or flight, like panicky. I'm crying my eyes out and I just feel so intense, right? After a couple minutes, I asked her how she felt and the emotion. And they said, "We feel a lot better." And I said, "Great." I said, I'm glad we were able to process that together. And I'm glad that you trusted me enough to show me and to trust me that I would come back. So the next day, I go and have a conversation with him. Now, the difference between this conversation and me in the past is Sage in the past would have reacted. And it would have been a whole blow up scene. And I would have been so angry at that party. And it would just been not a fun time. Okay. And it would have affected my son. Now what happened was I was able to come from a place of responding. And so him and I had a conversation and it went great. He said, "I did not realize how what I said impacted you, and I didn't mean to intentionally hurt you, but I understand how it did, and I apologize." And he said, "That won't happen again." That is an extremely different way that him and I interacted than we would have in the past, because I was coming from a place of responding instead of reacting, because I took the time to process that emotion and let it run through me first. Now, is that always easy? No. Do I always catch those things? No. Okay. Sometimes you have to have a debrief with your emotion after it's been triggered. Like maybe you're at work and you get really upset and then you react in not a way that's preferable or that you want to or is in alignment with your higher self. That's fine. Totally fine. But you've got to come home and talk to the emotion of why did that happen? Why did we react in that way? Right? And I'm going to give you one more example. Okay. So I went to a gynecologist and I have had a lot of trauma with doctors and just my health. Okay. And this was a new doctor that I was seeing. And so I go to the appointment and she's so nice. Like the doctor is so nice. Like, and it was explaining everything like so in depth. And she was just a lovely human being. Okay. But I was in complete panic, fear. I completely shut down inside. I was in fight or flight the entire time. And I wasn't really communicating the way that I normally would because my fear and trauma and sadness from the past took over. I got triggered and I was reacting. And so I get home. It was a very intense experience. I get home and I was like, hey, listen, past Sage and these emotions. Can y'all tell me why that happens? Why did y'all take over in that moment? And they said, because we were very scared because of things that have happened to us in the past. And I said, okay, that's totally valid. And I love you so much for trying to keep me safe and protecting me. I know that's why you took over and why we reacted that way. But let's do a review back of how that interaction was with that doctor. She was lovely, right? And they were like, yeah. And I said, she had our best interests at heart and she was explaining everything very thoroughly. So we weren't scared. Because the doctor could tell. Okay? She could tell I was like internally breaking down. And I said, just because something has happened in our past does not mean that that is our present and not our future. I said, we found a very lovely doctor. And I said, it's okay though that we reacted that way, but we have to talk about it. And I said, it's okay that we were sad. And I cried my eyes out because I had so much tension and anxiety in my body from that interaction. Like it was so intense. And then we cried together and I kept telling him, I love you. You're safe. It's okay. And I said, now we're going back in a couple weeks because I had a follow-up appointment. I said, the next time that we go, that does not need to happen. I said, y'all, my past version and my emotions, I said, y'all have to trust me that I will keep you safe. We do not need to react in that way. I said, I need you to trust that I've got you and I will show you a different experience. So we go back to the doctor, the most incredible time. Kiki laughing it up with the doctor, completely different. I also had a conversation with my inner kids and the versions of me that experienced that trauma with the health stuff and my emotions before I got out of the car. And I said, remember, I've got you, you're safe. That's our past experience. That's not our present or our future experience. Okay. Completely different experience. And then I had another debrief when I got home from that second interaction. I said, see how much better that went. And thank you for trusting me. And in that moment, I shifted my reality because I took a minute to validate why I was freaking out the first time. Because in all honesty, I had every reason to freak out because I've dealt with some very serious situations with my health stuff and being dismissed and gaslighted and just a whole assortment of stuff. So like that stuff's real and it's valid, but it's not who I am now or who I'm becoming. So I have to heal my younger versions of my emotions and say, yeah, that's fine, but that's not us moving forward. And I'm going to help you process through it. Now, when I go to the doctor, since that time, very confident and self-assured. I tell my inner kids, Ain't nobody going to treat us like that again. I will not subject you to any type of those experiences because I am the higher self now. And we have picked up a new toolkit and we know what we deserve. You have to trust me as the higher self. And I have not had a negative doctor experience since then. And I'm not saying I won't in the future, right? Because things happen or whatever, but I'm going to handle it completely differently because I'm coming from a place of responding instead of reacting because I process those emotions and that stuff that happened to me in the past. Okay. So we're going to talk a little bit more about your central nervous system. Okay. So your central nervous system, the thing that causes you to go to fight or flight, right? And it's very, very detrimental to your physical body, but not only your physical body, but your emotional body, your spiritual body, your mental body, because cortisol does not just go away, the stress hormone. It goes in your body, and if you don't process it out, then it's going to compact and compact and compact and compact. And that's why you feel hard and dense and that crystalline energy, and then experience anxiety, depression, and chaos things in your life. Okay. And you get chakra blocks, filter lenses. Okay. And it's unprocessed emotions. You have to get that cortisol out of your body after you have an experience like this. Like if you have a very intense emotion, like anger, sadness, frustration, even if you can't do it in that moment, cortisol lasts in your body up to 24 hours. And if you are in a constant state of fight or flight, like I was, and previously, I was just constantly stressed out. Okay. You're just compacting and compacting and compacting. In order to release those things, you have to do something to get your heart rate up, to elevate it. Now, you don't have to go pump iron for an hour and a half. Okay. Stretching for 10 minutes will do it. Dancing in your house or your office for 10 minutes, that will do it. Or if you go on a walk for 10 minutes, like, but you gotta go on a brisk walk, okay? Or doing like jumping jacks. It helps push it through your system and release. Have you ever had like a really intense, stressful day and then you get home and it feels like your whole body is locked down and your muscles are all constricted and you can't think straight? That's cortisol. That is stress hormones. When your fight or flight or central nervous system kicks on, your whole body constricts and it starts feeling in fear and that it's got to claw its way out of a situation. Kind of like when and this is something that has kept us safe from an evolutionary standpoint, because when your fight or flight comes on, you're constricting your reality to only focus on what's in front of you so that you can escape. Like when we were cavemen, cavewomen, there might be a tiger around the bush, or there might be a crocodile at the watering hole you need to go to. Okay, so you got to be on high alert. But the difference between us and them now is that things that cause us stress are like emails, our tire being flat, a confrontation with a friend. But your body thinks from an evolutionary point, the tiger is the same as the email. Okay, it doesn't know the difference. Now, cave women and cavemen were able to run that stuff off because they're constantly doing physical activities, right? They're not sitting in office chairs all day. Sometimes we're not doing that. We're just sitting in our chair being stressed and anxious all the live long day, every day. And then it's just compiling and getting worse and worse and worse. The only way to get that stuff up out of your body is to elevate your heart rate and get it out. And you don't have to do it right afterwards. Let's say that you have a confrontation with your boss and you going through it in the fight or flight and it's not optimal. You can go home and do something afterwards. It doesn't have to be immediately, but it's got to be something. Like when I've had a really stressful, anxious day and I start to feel constricted and locked down, I do a dance workout for 10 minutes at my house, or just go on a walk or take a salt bath, hot salt baths are good because they also get your heart rate up. And salt is really good for resetting your central nervous system and resetting your chakra system, especially if you ask the water to help you release energy. A lot of this is about intention too, intentionality. If we're doing a dance workout or we're stretching or we're going on a brisk walk, or maybe you do go run on the treadmill, saying, I am releasing energy that is no longer serving me. That's half of it. When you start to work from an intentional space like that with your energy field, it makes the world of a difference. I can do a stretch and it's going to help. But if I do a stretch and say, I'm releasing stress and anxiety from my body and saying that over my energy field with authority, my body releases it. Taking the cortisol and stress hormones out of your body is just as important as processing your emotions, because that's part of it. If you are not like energetically releasing by processing and talking to, either your inner children or your past versions or your emotions, step one. Now we have a physical body that we have to heal. And that looks like you doing some type of physical activity to release it. Two parts to this, okay? When I was processing my emotions, when I first learned about this, very beneficial. But when I really shifted is when I combined both of those steps, because they're both extremely necessary to process all the way through. So I would make some type of commitment to yourself of, I'm going to move my body for at least 10 minutes a day, doing something that gets my heart rate elevated. And if you're an empath, light worker, neurodivergent, you need to be doing this every day. Like, this needs to be of the utmost importance, because it will shift your life. Sometimes it'll be the simple things, okay? But it will, because you're not having all that stress and anxiety up in your body. When you are stressed and anxious, it creates this fog over your mental scape, and you start getting in fear, you start catastrophizing, you start latching on to negative thoughts. And once you start going down the negativity hole, it starts picking up forward movement. Okay. You can either pick up movement towards negativity or positivity. If you have stress and anxiety in your body, now we're more likely to listen to our self-limiting beliefs. Now we're more likely to start catastrophizing. Now we're manifesting and pulling in more negativity into our life. Like, have you ever had a bad day? You just start off rocky in the morning, and then one thing after the other happens. That's you manifesting negativity, because you're focusing your intention and energy on that. And so it's picking up speed. Okay. So we have to do something to stop that train and go towards positivity. Also, when you're constricted, let's say that the email and the tiger thing. Okay. So we're stressing out. It completely cuts you off from your upper chakras. It cuts you off from imagination and creativity, because imagination and creativity don't matter when you're trying to claw your way out of a life experience. You're constricted and hyper focused on, oh my God, how do I fix this situation? And now we're manifesting fear from fear, instead of manifesting from, oh, well, here's how we could do something different, or like downloading a new idea or doing something in a new way, which is like open and expansive, right? But if you do not get that stress cortisol out of your body, you're going to be manifesting from a place of fear and anxiety and stress. And you will get more of that. Manifestation goes both ways. Okay. For the first 27 years of my life, I was manifesting from a place of negativity. And it was just like one thing after the other constantly. And it wasn't until I realized you can also manifest negative stuff, right? It's not all positive. You got to switch your channels. And so doing these emotional processing activities, like talking to them like a small child and validating and taking the time to process them, helps you switch your channel and start manifesting awesome, wonderful stuff. Okay. And when I say processing, this was not easy in the beginning. Okay. This is a muscle that you have to build, just like with anything. Practice, 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 practice. When I first started processing my emotions, not fun. And it was not easy at all. Now it's a it's a breeze. Like the other day, I was sitting on my bed crying my eyes out because I was so stressed and anxious about something. And there was this voice that came in my head, and it was like, you shouldn't be upset. There's nothing for you to be upset about. And I said, no, because that voice isn't coming from me, right? I said, I have every reason to be sad. It's totally fine if I feel sad. That's part of the human experience. I said, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to seep in my sadness. I'm going to feel it very viscerally. And that's totally fine because I'm not going back to those places and spaces that I was because I'm not that person anymore. And I just completely gave in. And after like 30 minutes, I felt great. And the next day, I had a wonderful day because I validated those feelings and told them, you are worthy and I appreciate you and I love you. Let's do it. Now, is it always like super easy? No. But compared to who I was 3 or 4 years ago when it was a struggle, it's like a gajillion times easier now. But I had to continuously do these processes over and over and over again, right? To learn how to process them. So I don't want you, if this is newer to you, to do these and be like, oh my God, well, Sage said, okay, this is a work in progress. You are teaching your feelings that it is safe, that it is safe to feel them in your body, especially if you've been living up here on the observation deck, kind of disassociated from self. You have to reteach your emotions that one, you care about them and it's fine to feel them and that you love them and that it's safe to do that. It's like building a trust bond with them, right? Just like you would with like a child or like a new friend. It takes time to repair and mend and build that relationship up, right? Okay, so down here, you see resource 1, 2, and 3. These are all videos that have really helped me on my journey. One of them is from Dr. Joe Dispenza. He goes really in depth about this energy and motion concept, much further than I'm able to in this one course. And so if you want to check him out, and then there's another one where it talks about your central nervous system, and she goes much more in depth into that, about how it affects you not only on a physical body, but also on your spiritual body. So highly recommend that. So in the clickable slides that I'll send you, you'll be able to go to those resources. All the resources that I share are on YouTube. I think, yeah, all of them are on YouTube and they're all free videos to watch, very easily accessible. Okay, so the last thing before we move on here is it's very important to learn to process your emotions as an adult and the things that you're experiencing now. Because in order to help your inner children heal and process their emotions, which we'll get to, you have to be able to do that yourself. It wasn't until I started taking a look at what's going on in my current reality and how to process through those things before I was even able to get to inner child healing. Because how are you going to help somebody with something else? Well, you don't know how to do it yourself. Okay, and not saying you don't know how to process your emotions, just getting stronger in that ability, because there is going to come a time where you're helping your inner children, or maybe you already are, if they are the root to most of your behavioral patterns and triggers and trauma, and the reason that the things are not going the way that you want in life, you're going to have to help them heal through their emotions and the things that happened to them in the past. So you got to learn to do it in the present so you can go back in and help them, right? And then you all shift into a new reality together. That's why I'm doing this in this layeral format of learning, because this is how you get to release all of those like big, heavy things from the past. Okay. And how you shift into a new reality, a new person. And honestly, I'm a completely different person than I was like 15 years ago. Right. Okay. So, raising your frequency. You know how we talked about if you are in and drinking water, okay, it's a great way to process things. Especially you can ask your water, like, can you help me process my emotions? And it will help you because the water is an amplifier and it holds frequencies. Clear channel. Okay. So raising your frequency. You know how we talked about if you are in forward momentum into negativity, it builds up speed and then it gets worse and worse and worse and worse. You have to do something to shift out, right? And I'm not saying that you need to be feeling great all the time because that's not how life works, right? But we don't need to stay in lower denser frequencies all the time because then that makes life not fun. So when you are experiencing negativity or after you process your emotions, right? Because that's really heavy. It takes a lot out of you energetically. We need to flip frequencies, flip channels. Okay. So when you are spiraling, catastrophizing, panic mode, fight or flight, we completely forget what fun even is. Because when you're in the moment, you're like, oh my God, this is going to be my life forever. I'm going to be miserable forever. And then a couple days go by and you're like, wow, I was doing a lot. Right? And not always. Sometimes we're just going through some really heavy things in life. But if you can momentarily flip the channel, it will help you point towards a positive forward momentum. Okay. So we're going to talk about 10 activities that give you energy. So this has really helped me in my life because, again, when I'm upset, I don't remember what these things are. And so I made a list of things that bring me joy. Okay. You have to put this list somewhere you can see it because if it's in a notebook somewhere, it's not even real. Okay. It needs to be on a mirror. It needs to be up on the wall. It needs to be in your phone if that's what you want to do, because we always have our phone with us. And when you start spiraling, catastrophizing, or you're just in a icky yucky mood, we can go to the list. If you are neurodivergent, or even maybe if not, okay, I'm neurodivergent, and most of the clients that I work with or people that I pull in are, and so that's why I talk from this lens. And neurodiversity can be a lot of different things. It can be ADHD, autism, it can be PTSD related neurodiversity. It just means that your brain functions differently than a neurotypical person. Just living life differently. Okay. Like no pros or cons. It's just different. So if you are neurodivergent, you don't know what type of energy you're going to have every day. You wake up and sometimes you are on level 1000 creator mode and you are just fully living into life. And then other days you wake up and it's like pulling teeth to do anything. We also have executive dysfunctioning coming into play where it makes us, or sometimes it makes it very difficult for us to do things like chores or our work or things that need to be done. And so you just never know. It's like a roller coaster ride. Even for me, I never know. Okay, what kind of energy I'm going to be in. So we need to take that into account and blend it in to this routine here. Okay, so I'm going to read you things that are on my list. And if you want to take some of them, feel free, but also put yours in there too. So you're going to have 3 low-level activities that you can lay on the bed or lay on your couch or on the floor and do that do not take a lot of energy. 3 medium activities. So that's like, oh, we're getting up and we're moving a little bit, but it's not too much, right? And then 3 high ones. This is when we're really like rocking life when you're like, I got a ton of energy, okay? So here we go. Going for a walk barefoot. Very important for empath light workers and neurodivergent people because you have more energy in your body than the typical person because you're tapped into more of your multidimensionality. And it's like you're trying to squeeze all this life force source energy into your tiny little human vessel. And so you got to get the extra energy out. A lot of times anxiety is extra energy in your body. And extra energy can very easily attach onto self-limiting beliefs and negative thoughts. Again, why it's really important to ground and get those things out of your body so it doesn't lean you towards that. Okay. If you are living somewhere where it's very cold outside and you can't put your feet on the ground, I always suggest to get a pot of some sort and put dirt in it and put it somewhere in your house. Put your feet in it. Like put it under your desk if you work from home. It doesn't have to be dirt from out, like on the ground outside. You can just have some potting soil that you got and put it in a pot and put your feet on it. Okay. But Mother Earth, Mother Gaia would love to help you ground that energy, and you need to. Okay. So anyway, so going for a walk barefoot, playing with my dogs, listening to Reiki and light language, watching funny videos like TikToks or funny animal videos, dancing, stretching, coloring, looking at art on Instagram. I love looking at art. Listening to electronic dance music for me, and listening to an Abraham Hicks chat. And that's a spiritual teacher. If you don't know her, she's great. But then I made it all colorful and fun, and I put it on my bathroom mirror because I work from home. If you don't work from home, put it in your phone. So now when we are spiraling, we can just go to the list and pick something like, oh yeah, that brings me a lot of fun and joy and fills my cup and gives me energy. Then when we're in the activity, we flip the channel, right? And I'm not saying you still won't be sad, but you're kind of stopping that forward momentum towards negativity, and it snaps you out of the catastrophizing because we're doing something fun. Okay, or to get the cortisol out of our body. Again, hang it somewhere you can see it. And then what was I going to say? Hold on. Oh yeah. Okay. So one time I was talking to a client and we were doing this together, coming up with a list. And she said, would taking my dogs on a walk be considered a good activity to give me energy? And I said, well, let me ask you a question. Are your dogs kooky and they're running all over the place doing the most? And she said, yep. And I said, okay, well, do you think that's actually taking energy from you, or is it giving energy? And she said, it's taking energy. And I said, okay, well, then that doesn't need to be on the list, because these are things that give it to us. Okay. Like for you, if it's, you have some kids and they're really young toddlers, maybe building a Lego set with them is not on your list because that can be frustrating. Okay. We need to have things on the list that are solely giving us energy, because we're also rewiring our brain and teaching it like these things that are good for us make us feel good, and they're not chores and we love them. And the more you do them, the more they get incorporated into your routine. Okay, so only energy giving activities. Now, something that happens with neurodivergent people is when we have a really high energy day, we will use every single bit of it. And then we wonder why we have 3 low days of energy afterwards. Is because we burned ourselves out, because we said, oh Lord, I've got energy, I gotta use it all right this second because I don't know what tomorrow is going to look like. But then it ends up being a self-fulfilling prophecy. And I've had to be very mindful of that too, of like, just because I feel great and I have a lot of energy does not mean that I need to overexpend it, because energy can roll over. If you don't use 100% of it, and let's say we use 70%, 30% of that energy is going to roll over to the next day. Okay. So if you are zooming with high energy, we need to not use it all up and mix in like a low energy or medium activity. It doesn't have to be like high energy activities all the time on your high energy days. Okay, so I want to say that as well. So I have some pictures down here of some different things that you can do. So we have playing with, your animals, maybe you like gardening, dancing, cleaning is a great one. I love cleaning because your home space and your car are an extension of you and your energy field, because you're always in them. And so when you organize them and clean them, even if it's only for 10 minutes, okay, you're going to feel a lot better. These activities don't need to take an hour and a half. Set a 10-minute timer, because if you are also neurodivergent, time is elusive. Time is not even real. Okay. Like sometimes we won't do things. Our executive dysfunctioning comes in and says, if you do that, it's going to take an hour, or you're going to hyper focus and get lost in it, or it's going to be awful to get up and do it. when you set a 10-minute timer to do something, an activity, even chores and stuff, okay, set a 10-minute timer. Now you're giving your body choice. You can do anything for 10 minutes. And then after the 10 minutes, you're like, okay, I can choose whether I continue or not. And if I don't, that's totally fine because I did 10 minutes and we're going to celebrate that. And I'm going to celebrate myself for what I did do instead of focusing on what I didn't do. Now we're teaching our brain, oh, these things are really good for us. They make us feel good. We love them. So we don't need to be doing things for an hour and a half. Okay, 10 minutes is enough to shift your frequency. And then you can decide whether you want to keep going. So like for me, when I used to clean my house, I used to get hyper focused and then I would just clean it for like 6 hours when I really need to be doing other things. And so I would utilize 10-minute timers to check in with myself. Or like when I'm working on a project, sometimes I have a tendency to work on it for like 5 hours and not take breaks and eat and drink water. Timers help you check in and say, okay, or maybe it's 20 minutes for you, right? Whatever it is, but start with 10. Okay, so we can do yoga or meditation for one of them, 10 minutes. You don't have to do an hour. Journaling, doing a creative project like coloring, putting a vision board together, whatever that is, sticker book collage, if you will, whatever that is for you, finger painting. You can take a salt bath. Like I said, salt baths are so great for helping you reset your energy and releasing stuff that's not serving you. It helps reset your CNS, your central nervous system, and your chakra system. Listening to a podcast or a playlist with music. If you are a music lover and it really helps you raise your vibration and frequency, when you are in a really good mood, I want you to make a playlist of high vibrational songs that make you happy so that when you are sad, you in the saddies, and you going through it, you can just go to the playlist, pop it in your ears, ready to go. Set yourself up for success, especially if you're neurodivergent. Your brain works differently. It's fine. There's a million tools out there that are built for you. Okay. And this is one of them. Have things prepared ahead of time, like this list. Okay. Shifting your frequency. So when we are in fight or flight, again, we are constricting and then we latch on to self-limiting beliefs and negativity, catastrophizing. We got to get out of the negative spiral. So a beautiful way to do that is to work with your physical body and your senses. So let's say we're having a panicky, okay, and like we're just having a really awful day and we're spiraling. If you get out a book or like the back of a can or a magazine and you read a paragraph of whatever it is, you have to focus on that specifically, and it helps you get out of the forward momentum of negativity. Or like if you have for your nose, if you smell something that's like super strong, whether it smells good or stinky, like smell your socks if you need to, okay? It snaps you out of it. It shocks your central nervous system. If you get your hands all the way up to your wrists, get them in cold water, like go run them in the sink. It calms down your central nervous system and your vagus nerve. You can also get like in the morning time is when you're, and I forgot to do this, I need to do this. When you are first waking up is when your anxiety is at the highest. If you have anxiety, also your central nervous system is all the way kicked up. So if you start your day like that, it's going to perpetuate. That's why sometimes being on your phone when you first wake up in the morning is a no good because you're already picking up on people's thoughts, feels, and emotions through the phone, and it's shifting your energy field. Okay. So if you get a cold or a bowl full of cold water with ice in it and dunk your face in it, it will reset your central nervous system before you put your makeup on if you wear makeup. Okay. Or you can do your wrists. If you are at work or if you're at the store and we're very panicky and getting overwhelmed, go to the bathroom and put your wrist in cold water. It will snap you out of it. Okay. You can listen to a positive playlist with your ears, like music really loud can help you reset. Sour candy. This one has been very beneficial for me. Keep it in your car, keep it in your purse, keep it in your bag, your drawer at work. We're spiraling, pop a piece of sour candy in, and your central nervous system goes, oop, and it will pause for a second for you to reset. This is one of my favorite things, voice notes to self. So there was a time where I used to hate the way that I sound. I could not stand listening to myself back on voicemail. Excuse me. Now, to overcome this, what I did was I started, and not saying you need to do this. This is kind of like a sidebar. Okay. So I started voice noting everybody in my life instead of sending text messages, and I would listen back to every single one of them. And there's this thing where your brain and your voice are not in sync unless you listen to it over and over again. And if you listen to it over and over, they start to sync up. And then it doesn't have that weird effect of like, is that what I sound like? And so now I sound exactly like I do in my mind as to when I'm voice noting people. Okay. Anyway, so I had a therapist like 15 years ago, 10 years ago. Time. Okay. 10 years ago that was told me about self-talk. He said, you need to record yourself, just non-edited, just dump it all out and then listen to it back. And at that time, I didn't do it and I didn't understand what he was saying, but working with energy healing now, get it. So when you have all of these emotions in your body and these thoughts are also a form of energy. And when you have negative thoughts, it's eating your energy. When you have positive thoughts, it's giving you energy. So if you are stressed and anxious, catastrophizing, going downhill, taking, that stuff needs to come out. So what I started doing is I have a friend, and you can do this with your friend, or you can voice note yourself on a voice recording app or send yourself voice notes on Facebook. Like you can voice note self there. You're going to just completely word vomit everything. Even if you don't listen to it back, it's going to help you because it's taking that energy out of your body. If you want to take it to another level, listen to it back. Because now we are objectively looking at our situation. When you are word vomiting, you're still in it. When you're reviewing it, now we're the higher self. You know, like when you tell your friend something and you tell them so you can get their perspective because they're not in the situation. They're an objective observer. That's what you become when you listen back to your voice notes. And that takes time and practice too, right? But you know how sometimes we're being a little over dramatic? Not all the time, okay? But sometimes we'll just be like going off the rails and just be very illogical because we're so emotional in the moment, and it clouds our vision when we're living from our emotional states like that and reacting instead of responding. Well, when you listen to it back, now we can kind of see if we were doing that. Okay. And then we can make adjustments. It's kind of like you being your own therapist. And that gets stronger with time too. Like when I first started doing it, I was like not being very trying to figure it out, like self-aware. I was just more listening to listen back. But now I can listen back to my voice, and I still do this. I listen back to my voice notes. I'm like, okay, well, from an objective place, this, and this. Okay. But maybe for you, you simply start at getting it out. And then when you get comfortable with that, then start listening to them back. And I send them to my friend. And she knows, like, she can listen to them if she wants to. Or maybe you tell your friend, if you have a trusted friends, like, hey, I'm about to voice note you, you don't need to listen to it, or you can delete it. Like sometimes she'll send me voice notes and then she'll just delete them and I know what she's doing. Okay, she's self-talking herself. Okay, again, above our little frog and mushroom friend here, calming down your central nervous system. Processing your emotions is an energetic frequency but then you have to come in with your physical vessel because you're also a human being with a body and help it process through them as well by getting the stress hormones out. And we talked about that previously about how ways to do that. Okay, so the first time I tried to record this, and some of you, or you may know, I say some of you, I did this as a live masterclass before, so I'm switching over to you instead of y'all. So the first time I recorded this, there was something wrong with the recording, and I had to re-record, and so it was just one long 5-hour course, and so I'm breaking this up into 5 parts to make sure that doesn't happen. So this is going to be part 1 of 5. You want to make sure that you watch them all in order because, again, this is a layeral type of healing. And so this is part 1. We'll get into part 2, and we're going to talk all about chakra imbalances and ways to harmonize your chakras. Because when you have blocks or filter lenses in your chakras, most of the time that is from unprocessed emotions and things from childhood. So in order to heal them and release them, you have to process your emotion. 1, figure out what is blocking you up, process your emotions, so then you can help your inner children with their quote unquote blockages and processing. Okay, so this is number 1 step, the most important. Okay, so I will see you for part 2.